I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading specialist data recruitment business. With offices in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, they're experts at providing recruitment strategy and building data teams for clients across industries Australia-wide. They provide recruitment solutions for all roles across the data lifecycle, including data engineering, data science, advanced analytics, customer and marketing insights, business intelligence, data product managers, and data governance. They're skilled at finding the best permanent and contract hires for your business needs, as well as statement of work, project focus, data resources. At Talent Insights, relationships matter most. I can say from first-hand experience, Talent Insights are fantastic to work with. Whether you're a business leader within an HR network or a specialist data candidate, Talent Insights should be the first company you turn to for all your data recruitment needs. Find them at talentinsights.com.au.
Hi, this is Felipe, and welcome to Data Futurology. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here over the last couple of days. This has been the first Ops World conference, and it's an area that we're obviously wanting to help grow in Australia and support the community through that improvement and growth. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Today, we're being joined by Brian Ferris. He is the Chief Data Analytics and Technology Officer at Loyalty New Zealand. Brian, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your presentation this morning. Thank you for the roundtable that you hosted. Thank you so much for your support throughout the years and for all your contributions. It's always amazing to get to sit down and speak with you, get to pick your brain. Thank you so much in advance.
Absolute pleasure.
Mate, today the idea is to have an organic conversation, so we'll see where it goes and where the questions come in. We're going to start by how to get value from your AI investment. So we want to start, and one of the things that Brian and I were discussing before is that sometimes it's very easy to make things sound right or sound okay. And what I mean by that is there are some high-level principles that I think we, as an industry, we want to follow. And there are things like align to business strategy and get stakeholder support and make sure that you have leadership buy-in and that you're engaging stakeholders, etc. And they're all things that we can say and we can all nod in agreement. But then what does it look like at the next layer of detail down? How do we actually implement those things? What are the actual challenges? And how are people doing it? And I know that for a fact, where I work, we're not doing all of those things and not killing it across the board. So maybe that's a good place to start. So looking from, we can start overall or from an AI investment perspective. Can we chat a little bit about that? What we agree about as an industry, and then the next layer down of implementation.
Yeah, sure thing. It was an interesting conversation, and a lot of what I heard here, there were great presentations, really smart people, lots of nodding heads around the room, and we're all going, yep, business buy-in, stakeholders, strategy, alignment, for sure. So my question was, and I've asked it a lot of times of myself and others, so why are so few, perhaps any organizations achieving it? Because we're all clear, there's no argument. I think if we got a cross-functional set of leaders in the room from marketing, supply chain, manufacturing, I don't think there'd be any argument there either.
Yeah.
But it's not what we're doing. Or in my experience, it's often not what we're doing. And I think in other people's, I see nodding heads around the room. And so you kind of, why? If we're all aligned, what's making this so hard? So I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier about it, and I've had a thought forming around this. It's still kind of a bit in its infancy, but I do hear a lot. We talk about alignment with the business strategy, alignment with stakeholders, getting their buy-in, bringing them along on the journey. I actually think we might be doing it a little bit wrong, a little bit the wrong way around, and maybe we need to turn our lens just kind of an eighth of a turn. All through that, what we're doing is deciding what the right answer is. So in this particular question, how do we get value from the AI investment? I would answer somewhat oddly, I don't think we do.
Yeah.
I think we do it differently, and we look at, what is the business strategy? I personally don't believe, it's pretty controversial, you should have a data or tech strategy. I think we should have a strategy, and within the initiatives, there'll be tech enablers, data enablers, HR enablers, supply chain. I think as soon as we have a separate tech and data one, there's a risk we wander off, and then we start selling what we're doing to the rest of the organization. Like AI, how do we get value from AI? Well, we need to get their buy-in. We need to understand what they want to do. I would suggest maybe do it the other way. Business strategy. What are we trying to do? Who's your execs? If you're not at the exec table, you talk to them. If you are, you should be hearing it. What are the priorities of the organization? The real ones. And typically those are the ones that are in the corporate KPIs that everyone's bonuses are based on. If you want to know what the real ones are, follow the bonus money. So what are those things that are driving the business that really, really, really matters? And then understand within those initiatives from the execs involved, what's keeping them awake at night? What is it they're worried about? What is the problem that if they could solve, they would sleep better, or the opportunity that's the way they see is the way to hit their numbers?
Yeah.
And then once you've understood all of that, and a bit of a long process, you don't do that in one meeting, at some point you start getting some insights into, we could help with that. And my experience is the help typically doesn't start at the AI end of the spectrum. It may start with hey, so what I understand is you have this hour meeting with your senior leadership team and you spend 58 minutes of it arguing over whose numbers are right. Not an uncommon situation. Maybe we start there. Now, it's not the data scientist's dream and it's not where you want to be, but that's the start that builds the trust, which ultimately can end with, hey, we've grown out of Excel, we've grown out of solutions, we've got to build something really clever. But working back that way, what it means to answer your question, why I say I don't think we do, I think if we're starting with AI as the solution and then kind of going looking for the problem to solve with it, I think we're always going to be flawed. And I think it shows up if we're not genuinely starting with the strategy and working backwards. If we actually kind of know the right answer already, and it's going to be AI, data governance, agile, what the answers are. Now I'm going to listen to you long enough to tell you that I've got the answer. If you turn that around to actually going, okay, I understand what's keeping you awake at night, and I think I can help.
Yeah.
Which might mean throwing out everything that you thought you needed to do in your strategy.
That's the thing. I think that's part of the crux of it, because I find it fascinating hearing you say don't have a analytics or tech strategy, and part of it is, and I agree, by the way. I think it's both controversial and right, and they're usually the type of topics that I like the most. But for example, like I built a data analytics strategy for my organization. I built a tech strategy for my organization. And now thinking about what you're saying, I'm like, well, why? Like why? And literally, so to me, what comes up is like I felt like we had to be seen to own something and to be holding ourselves accountable against something that we own as a division, and that then we're proving our value through that. So then, which is kind of like both justifying the investment in the capability, obviously like trying to obviously like a bit of ego and saying, hey, look at what we're doing, look at what we're bringing, but it's not the most collaborative approach, which is I think is the difference that you're bringing in.
Yeah, and what I've seen, the result of it can be, because all of those things are logical and normal things to do. Like they're not bad. The intent is really solid, but what I think that drives is then there's another silo, and it puts tech and data budgets at risk, because then you're fighting with other parts of the organization with a more direct link to revenue or cost management.
Yeah.
And when times are tight, if you can't have that direct linkage, we all know that that's when our budgets are at threat. And any project that was a little bit of a kind of passion project and it got funding, but no one really understands it, that one's going for the chop first. Now, that's very different if there's an initiative there because revenue is our number one goal this year. We've agreed on that. Yep, that's cool. And that's all about customer acquisition. That's what we're going to go after. And we've identified this sector as the key. And so it's all going to be about communicating with those people.
Yes.
So if you don't have a strategy, but you're just a critical part of that, because actually that's data-driven customer engagement and that's what you do.
Yeah.
You're not arguing for any of that budget.
Yeah.
Your CCO or CMO is saying, well, CEO, if you want to hit your numbers, we better be doing this. You're just on their coattails because they believe, as long as they truly do, and they will if you've done your job, yeah, I can't get that unless you deliver some of this. So if people start talking, then it gets away from the whole idea of cutting a tech and data budget.
Yeah.
It becomes which initiatives are we going to stop? And there'll be budget cuts all through the organization as a result. But you're not fighting in isolation and trying to explain why a cloud migration is critical.
Yeah.
That's going to cost $500,000, and people say, $500,000, that's a lot. You sure we couldn't wait a year? Yeah, what would it really matter? Because we're running okay now, Felipe. Really,
exactly.
You're telling me we'll go out of business in a year? We've all had those conversations, as opposed to, yep, you take that, and CMO says, well, that's fine, but I'm not delivering that revenue that you said I had to.
So interesting, because like I logically love the concept. I can feel like emotionally, I can feel things like, well, who owns the program of work or the deliveries, and then I think like what can I own, what can we own, and how do we sit, and then within that it's kind of like, then are we kind of in a way subservient to putting in a kind of like more extreme words, are we subservient to the whims of another area that we are kind of supporting in a way, kind of like whether we agree or not, right? And so how do you see navigating that type of scenario? And I know that we're kind of spitballing the idea to a large extent, but yeah, I logically love it, and I do have, for example, in my case, I do have stakeholders where we do have that relationship, and there is that support and that buy-in, and they definitely say, look, without tech and data, we can't get our stuff done. You guys are an integral part, and then the support is there. For other areas, not so much. So I find that I kind of feel like I need to do things right from a data analytics and tech perspective. And your example of a system migration is a great one that literally for us, it's recently happened through an acquisition. I'm like, we need to migrate. But from a business perspective, it's really like, we don't really. Exactly.
Why?
So anyway, so going back then, how do we navigate the trade-offs, the balance between supporting and leading, or yes.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean.
I think there's a few different parts to it that kind of happen before we get there. And one of them, I think, is tech and data leaders. We need to elevate our own thinking about ourselves and become enterprise leaders. So that's where I think some of that problem stems from, is the history that we have been subservient. We have been a kind of lesser dark room in the basement. We should be enterprise leaders just like any other enterprise leader. We should be able to have an opinion on these things, a well-informed opinion. We should understand the strategy. We should understand the language of the organization. We should understand how it delivers value, generally how it makes money. But in the instance of Bernardo's, how those value outcomes are done. Really understand them so that you can sit at the most senior levels and go, well, hang on, is that really going to deliver the outcomes you're saying? Really?
Yeah.
And you're not bringing that from a tech and data point of view. You're bringing that as an enterprise leader who understands these things and goes, that feels flaky.
Yeah.
That feels flaky. I'm poking my finger in there in a respectful way. So then you've got that seat at the top table because you have informed yourself about the organization.
I love it.
And then the second part of it, I think, and this is a much sort of deeper, a little bit more intangible, is you have to have trust in your exec or whatever management layer you're in. You've got to have trust between each other.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you have to start building it, because there has to be the trust that what I say to you is what I mean, and that therefore the same applies, that we're not doing dirty deals in the background or doing empire builds. And the third thing, I think, if you've got those two, the third piece you don't have to do, we get for free, is that delivering tech and data initiatives, or value through tech and data initiatives successfully, is almost impossible. So organizations need our skills to make it happen. It doesn't matter if no one's reporting to you or if it's distributed, but the ability to take that investment and actually get the value out the other end is really hard. Most stuff fails. So that's why I think there's not a risk that we become irrelevant or that we don't add value in there. So we've got the deep understanding. We're an enterprise leader that knows a lot. That happens to be deep in one area. Hopefully there's a trusted relationship, and there's the knowledge that to get value out of these big investments, our skill sets are needed. Therefore, how do we bring them to make it happen? Which, as I say, may mean not having any people reporting to you. That shouldn't be a criteria for anything.
Yeah.
What's important is that you have the influence in the organization to be able to take a stand when you need to make changes and things when you need to, because the right business outcomes aren't going to be met. Not because of tech best practices or whatever, but because, hey, we do that. CEO, how do you feel about being on the front page of the newspaper with a data breach? Is that something in your career plan? Yes, no, because that's the choice you're making.
Yeah.
And if you've got that trust and the enterprise credibility, people are at the very least going to stop and listen and go, oh, yeah, this person kind of knows what they're talking about. They're speaking our language, and no, I don't want that. So, let's pause that for a moment while we hear Felipe's opinion on why that's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's an awesome approach. And I think that in the development of leaders, definitely in our space, I was going to say, particularly in our space, we come from a world where we had to be experts, and like our value to the organization was driven from our expert knowledge and the ability to deliver within that. And then, so I've seen it a lot, and I've definitely seen it in myself, that going from that expert level where you're comfortable in your domain to an enterprise leader where you are caring about everything.
Yep.
Where it's not like, do we have, like what I was saying before, do we have the best tech and let's make a decision so we can have the best tech? Yep. It's, you're going beyond that and broader and looking at as you said, the strategy and the outcomes. And so let's talk a little bit about that gap. And I think then we can jump into the other two that you mentioned. How do you recommend people think about that transition from I'm an expert, my value is from me having all the answers within a domain in an organization, to then thinking more broadly about the enterprise in general, where I have to be thinking about areas that may sit outside of my wheelhouse, and I have to kind of be better at asking the right questions instead of having the answers.
Yep. So I think we have to start earlier. That's one of the first things. So at the level of probably senior developer, senior analyst, that kind of level where we're starting to see people show their leadership skills, but not in a formal someone reporting to you way, but they're starting to influence the organization. That's when I think we need to be having conversations with our people to find out what their not necessarily long-term goals. I mean, I hate it when people say, where do you want to be in 5 years? I have no idea. I have no clue.
Yes. Except here.
Yeah. Yes. But you do tend to get things. What excites you about your job? What interests you? Where are you going? And there'll be some that are very much want to stay on a super technical path, maybe become contractors, get to principal engineers and things and stay very focused technically, not looking to influence the rest of the organization. Cool. Fantastic. There'll be others that do. They're not sure how. They don't all necessarily want to be executives, or they might want to go into an architecture space. They might want to go into sort of people leadership and C-level and that. But if you've got those people, they're going to want to broaden their skills beyond Python, Java, whatever it may be, and start early with some of those pillars, things like finance. If you want to influence an organization and you don't know what a P&L and balance sheet is, you're not credible. Start early with them on that. Influencing skills. The fact that the tech makes perfect sense doesn't mean anyone else is going to understand you. You know, those storytelling, influencing type skills, things about enterprise presence. Start very early on with them, just little bits. You know, you don't dive them in, and so that we start growing that along the way, so that our people are ready and they're credible partners at every level of their journey. So hopefully I'm a credible partner with the other C-level execs. My head ofs that report to me are really credible partners with their equivalents.
Yeah.
And so on down the org, because, going on a random sidebar, but one of my beliefs is, I'm very much against centralized control. I think it's slow and it's not so much agile, the process is agile, the thinking.
Yeah.
So if you've driven these capabilities through the organization, you get really smart people with deep functional knowledge able to make better enterprise decisions. They're not, everyone's a bit different at different levels, but you're bringing that dimension. So not everything is having to go all the way up through a whole lot of layers very slowly and then all the way back down, and then you realize it's garbage by then it goes all the way up. People are making decisions fast on the ground, all going, ooh, no, this is a biggie. We're pushing this one up the line.
Yeah.
This is beyond us. So I think it has some real benefits. But long answer to your question. Right. I think we need to start earlier, identify the people that are interested.
Yeah.
And if they are, then start nurturing them sooner.
Awesome.
In a broad swathe of enterprise skills.
Yeah, because then you start to develop sort of with more time, you start to open people's minds that sometimes in the way that we're doing things today, as the promotions sort of come, and obviously like promotions happen because people are chasing them, but we often don't know what is required at that next level. So then we're like, yeah, I got it. Oh shit! Like, now I can understand what.
I often think the way a lot of organizations do their promotions are less like a step up and more like a push off a cliff.
Yes.
And not everyone survives. A lot of talent doesn't survive the trauma of just being dropped in it horribly. It's not, there's no winners out of that game. But if we've been ramping our people up gradually into it, then it's a big step, but it's one you're kind of prepared for, and you've got a very good chance of surviving and embracing and doing well with.
Really nice. I also love your comments around a credible partner at the peer level beyond your domain area. So beyond analytics or beyond tech, being a credible partner at your peers at an enterprise level. So for that, I'm going to ask you about influencing skills and tips, essentially, because at a peer level, the way to get things done is through that soft influence where there is no hierarchical power. What are some of the things you found that have been helpful in those situations?
Yeah, so one of the things I'd say is that applies everywhere, because hierarchical power, I'd say, is almost useless. If you are instructing and ordering people to do things, they are likely to follow exactly what you said. To disaster. There's ways you can do exactly what you were told and completely destroy things. So people have got to genuinely want to be part of it. So, and influencing, to me, what's really, really important is it shouldn't be seen, and if done right, it's not a Machiavellian selling exercise and trying to convince you of my point of view. I see it much more as we assume we both have the same outcome in mind in terms of the strategy, same company strategy. So we both want the best for the organization. We both want this outcome. I believe a certain thing's important, and I need to be able to articulate that in a way that you understand. You don't need to agree, but you need to know why I think it's important. Now, that means I have to understand a lot about you first. So when I'm helping my folks with influencing, that's the first thing, all those things about listen to understand, because I need to know what the number one thing is on top of your mind at the moment. Because if I'm going to, talk to you about something, try and convince you want to do something, that's what you're interested in. So for instance, if it's the CFO and they are really worried about the numbers at the moment, coming into a quarter and it's looking a bit stinky right now, you need to know that. You need to understand. And the first thing you might want to get out is, hey, we're looking at this new software. It's not going to cost us any more. Right. Because the next half hour, they haven't heard a word until they get, because that's the question that jumped to mind. And they heard nothing you said until they get that question out. To know that that's top of mind, you had to understand them. And then having understood them and having understood what their priorities are and what's keeping them awake at night, then you can present what you're trying to say in a way that makes sense to them. Hey, we've got this thing over here and it's carrying a risk. If we spend 100K now, which I know we don't want to do, I hear you don't want to do that, there's a very real, and that's what if we do it in a planned way, if we have to do this in an unplanned way, it could be 1 million.
Yeah.
And I think for these reasons, that's a material risk. Okay, I've just spoken to you in language that you're going, I don't like that, but I like that even less.
Yes.
I never mentioned technology. You have no idea what I was talking about there. Data was tech, it was whatever, but that's all about the audience. So we can start working with our people around influencing, and that's all about the message that lands, which means it's all about the audience, not about what you think's important.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back, outcomes. What's the outcome you're trying to achieve? The best thing for the organization. Okay, frame it up like that then. I see a lot of very senior people, particularly in the architecture space, sort of ivory tower architects, very cynical, very frustrated that use the term they a lot.
Yes.
They don't understand, and they're stupid, and they don't get it. And you don't know how to do your job talking to them.
Yeah.
So, and something else, I hear a lot of they. If I hear a lot of they, that tells me your influencing skills are probably lumpy. We talk about we, it suggests, as long as it's not just a facade, that you are thinking in the right way. We have a problem with this. If we don't spend the money now, we've got this huge risk that might happen.
Yeah.
That's not your risk. It's not mine. It's actually ours. You might be able to tell me, hey, I get that, but we just don't have the money. We got to carry the risk. Is there anything you can do to mitigate the risk? Yes, there is. It's not perfect, but if you could give me 20K, I can probably get us through another quarter.
Yeah.
Shit, that'd be a lifesaver if you could. Okay, that's a very different conversation to the, we have to have 100,000 do this. We haven't got 100,000. I don't know. You know that. Why are you asking?
Yeah.
That's the same conversation, but it can be held a very different way.
So really interesting, because yes, there's definitely a big focus on, the enterprise leader view that we spoke about before. There's a big focus on understanding what's important to the other person. But I think additionally, it sounds like you take a really nice approach of, I don't have to be right. Yeah. Like going to a conversation to say, okay, I'm coming in with my idea and I'm going to catch up with Brian. And at the end, he's going to say, you're right.
I'm going to win this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to win this.
Right. And then like, it sounds like you're coming with into ambiguity to say, I've got my views, I've got my reasons. I'll, take the other person's point of view. I'll explain my side the best, but we'll come up with something jointly that could be totally different to what I've got in my sheet of paper here. It could be different to what they're thinking. Could be something new. And that's like that example of going from 100K spend, discussing a 1 million K spend, ending up with a 20K spend, and to be like at an enterprise, that's the best for us right now with that broad lens. I think it's that sense that then if you're not taking an approach of who's right and who's winning, and you're not keeping tally, then you walk out of that meeting going like, oh shit, like we came together and we actually fixed this problem.
The best we could. And it might be that we're both pretty unhappy with it, but we think it's probably the best we can do with what we got. We can't do any better than that.
Yeah.
That's literally the best you can achieve. It's one of the risks, I think, when you have a tech or data strategy, it then becomes something you may need to defend.
Yes.
Okay, I need that 500K for the upgrade that I think is really important. And I know it's really important. But that's now mine that I'm having to argue with you versus someone else who wants that 500K to do a marketing campaign. We've now just gone into an adversarial. We've set ourselves up that someone's got to win and lose. Speaking personally, I know there's others like it, but I've got to be very careful not to dig myself into a position where I get emotionally attached to it. And I'm going to defend it even past the point of logic and reason, just cause. So I think it's important we just avoid that situation altogether and hopefully come together as, right, we've got 500K to spend. Okay, organization, where's the best place to put that? Where do we think we can get this and why?
Yeah.
So you believe that, okay, or lay it out why you think that is the best thing. But knowing you're not saying it is, given what I know, I believe this.
Yeah.
What do you, given what I know, I believe this. And if there's a basis of trust there, it can allow even for you to disagree. Well, I still think that's going to deliver more. Well, I think it'll be this one. Okay, we need the CEO on this one. We can't agree, but we're okay with it. CEO says that one. Okay, I'm right behind it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go and throw my toys and then try and sabotage it, because you've got that psychological safety, the culture of trust, which says, okay, let's go wholehearted on that one then. Because I could have been wrong. I don't have all the facts. I have my little bit of context and my beliefs. I might have been right. I might have been wrong. Who knows?
But also with the enterprise view, like you are already geared to think about more than just your area. So if you're trying to think about spend and you only have your area in mind, your mind goes to, where can I put that money?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But if you're saying like, okay, let's understand what we're all trying to do and how we get there, then you might think, well, actually, it is better in marketing. Like,
you're right. You can get more bang. And that's, again, one of the risks when you have a separate strategy. If you allow it to ossify into a silo, then you get a tech budget that you're trying to defend again. And you're hiding and you're defending, and it drives a whole set of behaviors, which will be the same in marketing. So people then try and hide things and camouflage things and have pet projects rather than, take that what's best for the organization, which can allow... Also, I think it allows organizations to move very fast and achieve it, because you can, and we've done this in the organization I'm in, where we'll stop about, we've seen an opportunity, a competitor's done something very stupid, and we need to go after it. There's a small window of opportunity, and we're looking right across the whole organization. Right? What can we stop or pause? Who can we move? Who can we shift around? We're explaining to everyone why. So everyone gets it. Yep. Wow, this is awesome. Boom. And we're in there real quick. You can't do that if you've got your strategies and your defenses and you want me to stop this. Why? Yeah, it's my money. Hang on,
exactly.
No, because I'm not getting that back. It really slows organizations down and brings some destructive behaviors, I believe.
Exactly. Oh, such a great point. Thank you. And the other one, the second one that you mentioned, which you just touched on again, is the relationships at a peer level and the psychological safety to then create trust in a way that people feel like, that they're not being played, manipulated, or that there are perverse incentives or reasons why people are trying to take things in a specific direction. What have you seen work well to create that psychological safety with peers, those relationships with peers, particularly across the enterprise? What are you seeing work well in that area?
So I think that has to start, and the key bit is somewhere a long way from AI and tech and data world, which is the DEIB: diversity, equity, inclusiveness, and belonging. The components are in there that gets a bit of a bad rap in some places because it's a bit of a tick box exercise. But if you've got a diverse, truly diverse organization with real diversity of thought, who feel included and so you've built that safety and trust so they feel included, and it's equitable, everyone's feeling that it's fair, and you've got a real sense of belonging, then the rest will take care of itself. So to get there as a leader, I think there's a whole bunch of things that can be done. The obvious one is be honest, be truthful. I think this is where things like vulnerability come in, appropriate vulnerability. Your team don't want you bursting into tears every morning and things, but they do want a whole human there that they trust, and that means admitting that you're having a bad day and building that vulnerability. It's making time for people. I think this is at all levels. It's not just leaders to have conversations and get to know each other. And it's to do the little things that build trust. I mean, it's not about technology or business. They're the things that apply in any relationship. Listen to people, understand them, make the effort, assume good intent. All of those basic things and as an organization, have trust built in the culture. Don't be assholes. You burn your people. Sometimes there's tough decisions to make, but do it in a really respectful way, the best way you can. Have a no assholes policy. It doesn't matter how good your prima donna developers are. If you've got one that knows you'll never fire them because they're the only one that knows the solution, and they just use that to rampage through everyone else, there's no trust there. Right? That's an awful culture. So as a leader, those are the things you can do. Be available, I think, be vulnerable, be honest and forthright and as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
And for me, very strongly, no assholes policy. And and that's all part of that equity piece. But all of that ties into your DEIB strategy. So organizations that do that for real, like it's genuine and they want to do it, I think it works well. The ones that want to tick box, okay, they keep hiring consultants to figure out why things don't work and why they're having problems and whatever else. But
exactly, yes,
that's where I think
I want to
comes
pay
from.
the lip service. Nice. And the third, thank you for that. The third one that you mentioned was around adoption. And I know that Connor, who presented here, he mentioned that to have successful initiatives, we need a village, and it's about the entire organization getting behind this. So what do you see? What have you seen work well? What are your tips around incentivizing, creating that adoption, so we can actually get the value from the work?
So I think this is another one of those sort of downstream things, because if you've got a tech strategy that tech's delivering something, then you've got to sell it to people and do change management and convince them. If what we've got is the initiative to increase retention by 10%, which has some tech components and data components, if those components work, you've done your POC, your POV, they're working, adoption and change management just disappear because the rest of the organization, or your CMO for argument's sake's gone, that works.
Yeah.
I've seen we've done this little sample here. We believe it's going to work on a bigger sample. That's going to give me the 10% retention. Now, one of the things in there might be we've got that data literacy program, because it's only going to work if we can get it out to all of our analysts. And that means we've got to democratize some stuff. I get that because we haven't got enough people. That means data literacy. Clearly, the data's got to be right. I understand that. You showed me why. So we've got to get that data ownership sorted out. They're not things I'm selling to someone. That's they understand to get this thing they really want, and we as an organization want. They're just critical components. But that means right back at the beginning, you've done those things we talked about, which is understand the strategy, the business, the outcomes, get tied into that initiative. And I think you do your hard work up front there, get that right, and the rest falls out really easily. So I kind of feel like if you've got those problems at the end of the process because you haven't done that stuff, you're a little bit stuffed at that point.
Yeah.
You had to do that all back there because now everyone's running for cover. They don't know why you're doing what you're doing. You got the money, sure, but I never really understood it. My people are busy. They're not available for QA. Not even sure how this fits in our process. We're all about retention, and you're doing this great thing on segmenting, but don't really know why. I'm not 100% clear. It looks awesome, by the way, Felipe, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Yes.
Okay, of course that's not going to be a priority. Why would any sane leader adopt that? And it is going to help with all their retention, but you've never explained that right back at the beginning in a way they understood.
Exactly. And sometimes people feel like, okay, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to, build it, and then they will come. Then they'll see. There is basically, I would say never do that. There is an exception that and that's where POC, POV is okay. On a very small scale, sometimes you do have to prove something, but the whole point, proof of value. Hey, you say that, Felipe, but will it really work? Well, let's try it. Have you got a segment we could try? Yeah, well, let's try it in, I don't know, Tasmania. We're going to, we got a problem there. Oh, let's try it there. We try it. Wow. That worked. Okay, what do we need to do to scale that? That to me, that's when it works, but only on that very tiny scale with a very clear outcome, not let's build an enterprise data platform because we should have one of them. Yeah.
I know, and when we do, everyone will jump in and they'll love it. I think that's very risky.
Very risky. The perspective of we should do this because we think it's good. Yeah.
The flip side of it, I think there's real value in tech and data leaders having a framework that this will build into. That this sounds a little bit Machiavellian, that maybe no one else knows about, but we're going to start with that initiative. We're going to do that one, going to do that one. And if you're really good, that doesn't turn into spaghetti because you've had a bigger data platform vision through all this. And these things got you a piece of the way there, but in a way that the business the rest of the organization's loving, they're getting huge value from. And at a certain point, they go, start to see the shape now. We got some corners and we're, hey, this is all joining together. And it can be, the data governance we're doing, that's awesome. We're doing it in Excel at the moment. That's okay.
Yeah.
But hey, if we want to do those things you're talking about now, we should probably change that up to another product, and people will get that then. They go, because it's a bit manky now. It's getting a bit big and a bit hard to use. That's okay. I've got a solution to that. And then at a certain point, the framework appears, and that's where I think also as tech and data leaders, we can add a lot of value by seeing that end game, even if we don't have to try and sell the grandiose plan up front, and we get there in a little bit of a disjointed fashion. That's okay, because you've got that thing for it to build into in the end.
I love it. It's kind of, have a bigger plan, but along the way, leave your ego at the door, because it's not about implementing my plan. It's about what we can do as an enterprise. So, mate, to summarize the topics that we discussed, so moving from an expert leader to an enterprise leader, I think having that broader mindset, starting that journey early. We spoke about psychological safety among our peers and building it throughout the organization. Moving to having adoption of the initiatives by taking a village approach and getting people interested early, and then also to have a bigger plan based on our experiences, but leave the ego in the door on how you get there. Brian, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, mate. Please help me thank Brian Ferris.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.